Hey, everybody, and welcome to the True Crime Squad. This is Katie Weaver. I'm here with my sister, co host, and partner in crime, Christy Brower. Hello.
Hello. Hey, everybody.
How's it going?
It's good. Do you ever get paid to show up at work and then not have to work? Because that happened to me today.
That's pretty cool.
I'm an Amazon Flex delivery driver, just part-time. And apparently they overbooked drivers today. So I showed up to work on time, ready to work, but they didn't have a route for me. So I got paid to go home. So, hey, I can't beat
Cool.
that. Also, there's a cat behind me. If it looks like I have an ear coming out of my ear, it's a cat ear. Yeah, that was
Oh,
kind of sweet. I was like, you know what I did? I went shopping. I went to Target. I was like, I'm going to go
yeah,
do something for myself then.
that's pretty cool. I love it.
Yeah,
Sounds
I
amazing.
didn't even know that was a thing, but hey, I've only been doing this like 6 weeks. So
Yeah. Well, occasionally you'll get a day like this, apparently. That's pretty nice.
apparently I was like, I'll take it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good. We spent the afternoon watching softball.
Ah,
Now that Mars is home, some of our dear family friends, their team was playing for the district title so that they can go on to state, their high school team.
oh,
So we went and
nice.
watched their game, and indeed, they won 13 to
Wow.
1. They run ruled that team. Jesus, there was no stopping
Wow.
them. I can't wait to see what they do at state. So yeah, it was fun.
That
Nice
is
to go watch
great.
a game that you don't have any stakes in, you know?
Right? You can just
Like,
enjoy it and not care.
yeah, you can be a little nervous or not or whatever, but it doesn't matter because it's not really win or lose. It's whatever, you know? So,
Right.
but yeah, it was kind of fun. Our friends, their daughter, well, mom is the coach actually, but she's their pitcher and she's really quite the ace. But when she got up to bat the first time she hit like a single, it was no big deal. Second
Hmm.
time she got up to bat, there were two runners on and they walked her. They intentionally walked her. They didn't even pitch to her. They just put her on base. And I was like, wow, that's pretty aggressive where this early in the
Right.
game, but okay. Next time she
I
gets
am
up to bat, there are
Observangus.
Oh,
two
sorry.
runners on base and she put it over the fence. So I'm like,
Oh,
okay, I get it. And then the
they knew
next
something.
time she got up to bat, there were two runners on and they needed one more point to end the game to run rule them. And she put it over the fence again.
Oh, hey,
So
that's
I get
fantastic.
it now. Yeah. So pretty fun.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. So we've been
I also
dipping our
enjoyed
toe.
today. Oh,
Oh, go
what?
ahead.
I also enjoyed today because I got to look into some other cases. It was kind of nice to,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we're done with Vallow. We're definitely not, but it was kind of nice to actually go,
No.
what? Lift my head up and go, what else is going on? I don't even
Mhm.
know. Found some interesting
Really
things to share with
interesting.
you.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Vallow. There was court today. It
Mhm.
was minor. It was arguing about what still kind of arguing about charges, but it's a little too late. But also just mostly arguing about what should be on the jury instructions.
Yeah.
And we know that's a big thing for the defense and very important that
Mhm.
they get it right. So there's no grounds for appeal on 404B. But
Right.
so they worked all that. They hashed that out. So this morning we figured that the courtrooms, because tomorrow, of course, is when closing arguments
Yeah.
begin. And now we're hearing that actually they're going to do jury instructions first. So first thing in the morning is jury
Oh.
instructions, which is backwards from the way we had it, and then they will move into closing arguments. So that's what tomorrow looks like. So we
Mhm.
figured that since everyone had rested, that the courtroom would probably be a crowded place. So we got up at we all set our alarms. We were ready.
Mhm.
I started to apply for my ticket. I even tried twice before they even opened it.
I did
Um,
too. It took me like 3 tries before I got through.
Me too. The website was moving super, super slow. I applied for my ticket. I applied. My daughter Mars that's home. She's going to go to court with us tomorrow. More the more typing thumbs, the better. I think it's going to be a very fast day. Um, anyway, by the time I got both of our tickets done, I didn't get an email right away, which you normally do. And so I was kind of thrown off. So, and we had all texted each other, Aunt Sue's coming too, and that we had all got our tickets, we're all good. But I was like, I'm weirded out that I didn't get an email. So I went
Yeah.
back thinking maybe I should just request my seat again. Maybe I screwed up. Oh no. By 8:04, Madison was full.
Yeah.
Madison has not been full one time in this tribe.
Mm-mm. No.
Full now. Then I get on Facebook and discover that Justin Lum and Nate did not get into Ada. And we're both in a panic trying to figure out what to do. And I believe both of them were gifted tickets from other people.
I
So
saw other people offering them up.
well, I offered Justin's. Mars said Justin could have hers if he wanted to come to Rexburg. So I did offer it to him.
Yeah.
But yes, somebody did give Justin and Nate tickets. Can you imagine? I mean, I was disgusted at the fact that, or the thought that we wouldn't be there.
Right.
But for them to not be there too, I mean,
it's been really unfathomable to me that there weren't a
Mhm.
certain number of seats that were assigned to media, that they didn't have to
Mhm.
apply every single day like everybody else.
So dumb.
It's been a pain in the butt. But yeah, I set an alarm for 7:55
Mhm.
to remind me to start, getting everything up and ready.
Yeah.
But the website was slow. You could tell that there were a million people doing the same thing.
Yes. Yep. Now Madison will be interesting because initially they said that Madison would have one viewing room and a courtroom, and then there would be an additional overflow viewing room. But there hasn't been because they haven't needed it. So I'm
Mhm.
curious to see if they're using that tomorrow or if they've eliminated that and it's just the courtroom because the courtroom is small. It
It
doesn't
is.
actually
It's
seat that
little.
many. It seats like 25 maybe.
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy. But we will be live tweeting and live Facebooking, and we will be back tomorrow night to tell you all about it.
You will.
And also, all while arriving there in the morning and trying to vie for some decent seats so that we can see and hear, we've got to do that again. Because if there's court on Friday, well, then by God, we got to be there. So
Right.
we've got to go
This
through
could
that
take
all
more than
over
one
again.
day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it could easily take more than one day,
Wild.
especially with jury instructions in the morning.
I know.
That's gonna
Because
take a hot
I
minute.
think they're fairly lengthy.
It sure sounds like it.
Looking like,
Yeah.
because they were talking about the numbering of it, and it was
Mhm.
close to 40, I think,
And they will go
instructions.
through every bit of that.
Yeah.
That's gonna take quite a while. Yes, there's so many news people in Boise. Everybody's there. Yeah. Yep. Paula, I kind of agree with you there. We had an experience when we were still in Fremont when they quit streaming these and we started going to court in Fremont. That the first time we went, the officer that was like, kind of checking people in, that asked us, "Are you press?" Actually, more like, "Are you press?" and, and we said no because
Hmm.
we're not
We're
really
not.
technically. And he said, "Oh, good." And we went, "Oh, they don't." They're not taking real kindly to the press. Judge Boyce clearly is not real thrilled with the press and all of the coverage of this case. So, yeah, I feel like this has been an intentional fuck you to the press.
Well, it has, because anywhere else, they were going to be sure that, like, there would be
Yeah.
seating that would be reserved for press. I mean, we have the
Yeah.
right for our press to be in all of these things. That is our
Absolutely.
right as citizens. But yeah, we aren't affiliated. We could be. It's not that hard to
Mhm.
actually be press
No,
and have press passes, but we found that it is
no.
actually better for us to not be,
We
because
just
then
kind of
we
move
kind of
around
fly under
under
the
the
radar.
radar and yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Till you
because
want to
we're
go
going
to
to
the
be headed
press
back to
release, the press
Fremont.
conference. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
be headed back to Fremont with Chad.
Mhm.
Also, we had been told here at Madison that they did not expect at the jail that Lori would be coming back here. Nate reported last night that her sentencing will be at Fremont. And if
Wow.
that's correct, then yes, she will be coming back here.
Right. If they're going to sentence her there, they're bringing her back. Wow.
Mhm. Pretty crazy. So, you know, and again, there's a lot of none of us know for certain what's going to happen.
Mhm.
It's we're going by what we've been told and what, you know,
Well, and I think that they're going flying by the seat of their pants, really,
100%. Yeah, without
because
a doubt.
our local people have not dealt with something like this before, and so
No.
this is new to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But that's interesting. But I mean, we don't need to. I mean, we can go to the sentencing. I mean,
Mhm.
but it may be live streamed also, where he's
Yeah.
live streaming the verdict. I'll bet they live stream the sentencing too.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Crystal. We have really tried. We've
Right. Well,
been
we have
really lucky in
local.
this case. We've worked really hard on this case, but we've also been lucky. We've had help.
Yeah.
We've had some very smart and in the know people that have helped us to know the real deal.
Right. We have.
Yeah.
We have, which is really cool. But that's what it's like to be local to something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I can't imagine. I was thinking about that. We're going to be back in the Fremont County courtroom pretty soon.
Keeping that cushion in my car that I've been taking to Madison County in.
Good
Holy
idea.
crap.
Yeah, the courtroom at Fremont's no more comfortable, and I am not looking forward to the Fremont County courtroom in July and
No, I'll bet
February.
it won't be air conditioned. I'll bet you
Oh
$100.
no, that's a gazillion-year-old building,
Yeah.
and it'll be hot as hell in there.
It's second floor too.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna be hot.
I'll have poor Judge Boyce dying in his robe. Yeah. Yeah, we've been
Yeah.
on it since the very beginning. I remember the day that I saw a Southeast or an East Idaho News article about a missing teenage girl, well, 2 missing children, particularly
Mhm.
a missing teenage girl that was just a year younger than my daughter.
Right.
And that, you know, was missing from here in Rexburg, and I was like, "What?" And I sent it to my sisters and said, "Does anybody know these kids?" "No."
Yeah.
Sent it to my daughter. "Do you know this girl? She was a senior, she was the editor of the high school paper, she pretty much knew everybody in her school." She's like, "I've never seen that girl." Uh, Mars's friend, who works at a little local coffee hut, said that she had served her coffee before at
Wow.
the Rhine, and or coffee or whatever, hot chocolate or whatever she'd ordered. She said that she had seen her before come through their drive-through, but that was the only person that we could find that even knew who she was.
Yeah.
And that was our first exposure to this case. And
This
that
was
was
before we knew that she hadn't been in school locally or anything. We just
this was in
assumed.
yeah, this was in December of 2019.
Yeah, very early December.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know, it was weird. I remember because we always have conversations about missing kids in our area
Mhm.
because between the 3 of us, we have, my
Yeah.
son's 27 now, but for a long time, we had kids in
Yeah.
various high schools and junior highs, and so we were always
Yeah.
looking to see, does anybody know this kid? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that one just really hung with me. I'm like, this girl, this kid, JJ, I mean, he went to the grade school down the road from our house.
Yeah,
Tylee should have gone to high school with my daughter. Like, where are these kids? Yeah,
yeah.
that was our very first exposure, and it's just gone on from there.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's what's up with Vallow. But in a crazy twist, we're going to talk about something else.
I know, weird, right? We actually had time to research some of our other cases and talk to you about those.
Let's talk about the West trial.
Yes.
So this is the murders of Orrin and Orson West. They were 3 and 4 years old in Bakersfield, California, California City, California, which is right outside of Bakersfield, or I think kind of like a suburb of Bakersfield. When they went
Mhm.
missing, their parents had called the police and said that they went missing from their backyard. And they lived right on the edge of a deep desert. And people were there everywhere, searching, helping search from the parents, Jacqueline and Trezell. They were adopted parents. Some of the bio families ended up there once it made it onto the news. There were huge, massive searches across the desert for these children and across the neighborhood. And it kind of immediately looked fishy. And we were on this case from the very beginning too, actually. And uh, I remember reaching out to a friend of mine that lives in Bakersfield and asking her a little bit about the terrain and the area to try and understand it a little bit more. And
Yeah.
it was very scary to think that possibly these two little guys could have wandered out on that desert alone. It was 3 days before Christmas, and it was just a terrifying thought. And the
Oh
search
no.
went on and on and on. And accusations started flying between families. Uh, some family members started to get very withdrawn from the press or volatile with the press. And it went on and on and on and on and on. And the more it went on, people started to think these people are lying.
Yeah.
Then the bio mom came out and said that her kids were illegally and inappropriately taken from her by CPS and put up for adoption, and that these folks had adopted them well before her rights to fight for them had expired, and then we had a dad of one of them come out of the woodwork and say that he had never been given any right of refusal to take his child, and it just got weirder and weirder.
Well, and that is so illegal. Like, you have to terminate parental rights in a
Yeah,
situation like that from both parents. I don't
yeah,
know how they got away with this. Like,
yeah,
as an adoptive parent myself, I know what happened with my son's parents.
yeah,
He was essentially, as far as the legal system was concerned, an orphan when we adopted him. His parental
yeah,
rights have been severed for both parents. I don't know how they got away with that with the dad. He was in another state,
yeah.
but they have to track them down and serve
Hmm.
them, and they have a certain amount of time to respond. I mean, they have rights.
Right.
And this dad did not get treated as though he did. And
No.
maybe California law is way different, but I really doubt that you can adopt some children out without legal
Yeah.
action against both parents. That just
Yeah.
does not fly.
Truly. So this case has been very suspicious and fishy from the beginning, obviously. And finally, an arrest warrant was issued after little more than a year after the disappearance of the boys for the parents.
Yeah,
And they were found driving around in a motorhome, hiding out basically. Um, there happened to be a man in the gas station that saw them, that recognized them and called the police. And that's
yeah,
how they ended up getting arrested. And so they have been at trial the same time that Daybell Vallow has been at trial.
right.
This case has not gotten nearly the same kind of coverage, unfortunately, and it
No.
deserves it. But
Oh, it
so there
does.
has been a news station from Bakersfield that's been live tweeting it. So I've been paying as much attention as I could to it. Some interesting things that we learned. So the Wests had actually adopted, they had two bio children of their own, and they had adopted two sets of brothers.
Right.
So Warren and Orson, sorry, were the babies, and then there were some little guys that were older than that. Well, the smoking gun for the prosecution really has been the testimony of those children, because when these little boys went missing, those kids were taken by CPS and they were never returned to the West.
Right.
The West actually fought from jail last summer. There was some action, some legal action, a restraining order against the West to not be able to contact those kids or have any contact with them because they were trying to get jail visitation with them. And of course, the prosecution's like, these kids are witnesses. They're not going anywhere near
Well,
you
and
people.
victims.
And victims, definitely victims. So there has been multiple kids on the stand that have testified. There was a 16-year-old boy who had stayed with them for a time. I don't think that he's one of these boys, who said that he had repeatedly seen Jacqueline put one of the little boys in a chokehold to make them stop crying.
Oh my God.
One constant from people who know this family is that these little boys were crying all the time, that
Oh,
they were constantly crying and sad, which to me means that their needs weren't being met.
right.
Uh,
It's that little.
yeah.
Yeah, they were hungry, thirsty, weren't being changed,
Hmm.
weren't sleeping,
Yep.
you know. Uh,
Yeah. So The oldest bio son testified, and he made kind of a contradicting statement. This was yesterday or 2 days ago. 2 days ago? 2 days ago. He was on the stand. He made two different statements. He said, because there's a real question about whether or not these little boys ever actually made it to the California City home. They had
Right.
just moved there very recently from an apartment in Bakersfield. And there was really no evidence in the house that these little guys had ever lived there. And the dogs that they brought never picked up a scent of these kids in the house, which really made investigators wonder, how long have these kids been missing? Well, they're in the opening statement, they said they think they were missing for 3 months, or that they had been gone for 3 months by the time they reported them missing.
Yeah.
There was no sign of them in the house. It was 3 days before Christmas. There wasn't a single present under the Christmas tree for Orrin or Orson. There were presents for all the other kids, but nothing for these two. There were no diapers. There were a few, like, size 5 diapers that were folded up and put up on a top shelf in a closet, but no dirty diapers, no wipes, no indication of children that were in diapers.
Mm.
There were no toothbrushes for them. There were no sippy cups or bottles or any, like, little kids' dishes of any sort.
Right. Like
There
nothing to indicate
were
they could have
no
been.
little kid clothes, shoes, toys. There was no indication of them in this house. So they get the oldest son on the stand 2 days ago. And he says, essentially, he kind of bounced back and forth. First, he said that maybe one of them had moved with them, maybe one of them hadn't moved with them. Basically, what they have said is that one of the little boys died by throwing up, like vomiting, being ill and vomiting and choking in the night. One of the younger kids had said that they saw mom and dad carry him into the kitchen, vomiting and sick, and he died. Then he said that, and that was Orrin. Then he also said that he heard a bump in the night in the California City home, and after that, he never saw Orson again.
God.
But there was a contradiction about how many boys were seen in the van when they left Bakersfield in December, on December 19th. It's a small contradiction, and he's a kid, you know. But that, of course, the defense was all over that. So the defense, they did a thing. They put on a defense. I know this is wild. How in the world did Lori's camp knock? I'm still there. But anyway, no, we're
Right.
moving on. They called, today, this morning. It's maddening. Actually, I hate it when the defense calls witnesses. So maybe we we probably dodged some bullets and high blood pressure on them not at Lori Vallow's trial. But
Right.
anyway, so they call this woman to the stand this morning, Dr. Susan Napolitano. She is a forensic psychologist and psychiatrist. And she was there to discuss the questioning techniques or the interview techniques used on the kids, trying to say that the interviewer used coercive and suggestive questioning techniques that may have implanted false memories into the boys' minds. Basically,
Based on what proof other than her word?
she didn't have a lot of proof. She said that she was hired at $350 an hour to review this case for the defense.
Good
The parents each had their own lawyers, but they were all public defenders, so the county was paying for this. And she put 100 hours of work into studying all of the different interviews and yada yada. So essentially, she was paid about $35,000 to come here and say that.
Right.
She also said they used social pressure on him during his interview. and basically just tried to put some doubt in the mind of the jurors that what the kids were saying was accurate or not. However, under cross, they asked her if she had reviewed the 2,000-page offense report that was generated in this case, uh, or any other evidence except for the children's interviews, and no, she did not. They asked her if she had written a report about her findings that they could, you know, access to be able to really get a sense of what she discovered. She did not.
Oh my God.
They
So
asked
she
her,
literally just wants people to take her on her word.
what did you do that justified you being paid more than $35,000 to come here and say this today? And she didn't have much else to say.
So she watched a few videos
Mm-hmm.
out of context because she doesn't even know really what this case is.
Mm-hmm.
Makes 35 grand and shows up for the defense and
Yep.
says these things.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, that's not credible at
No.
all.
Super gross. But then they rested.
I mean, what have they got other than the children's bodies have never been found?
Yep.
I mean, that's the shitty part about this.
There is
There's
a
no
lot
bodies.
of other evidence. It is circumstantial. There's quite a bit, though. And again, unless we covered the West trial the way we've covered the Vallow trial, I could never give it all to you. But you can always do a little more work on that yourself too if you're interested. But it is very sad that their bodies have never been recovered, and just the whole thing. I mean, it's horrifying. But at any rate, they rested, and so tomorrow morning they are doing jury instruction, and tomorrow afternoon they're hitting closing arguments.
Holy shit. That's
Yeah,
insane how just step by step it's followed. And
yeah,
yes, Christy, you're right that the defense is kidnapping, that
yeah.
they're still sticking with their ridiculous, unprovable story that the
Hmm.
kids were kidnapped.
Yep, they're still trying to claim kidnapping. The motive that, at least in the opening, we'll see what the closing brings, but the opening motive for the state was that they wanted to collect the money that they were getting from the state to be adoptive parents without actually having to deal with these two because they were difficult.
My God.
Yep.
Which I gotta tell you, it's not very much money, especially kids that little.
Yeah.
Little kids get less money. When they get older as teenagers, it's a little bit more. But having we got our son at 14. We adopted him at 16. Uh, what we got barely fed him, let
Hmm.
alone everything else that we
Yeah, but
spent
if you
on
have
him.
4 kids you adopted,
Right.
and I'm thinking it may be a little better or they had better benefits in California because neither of them worked.
I'm sure California does have better benefits than Idaho, but it's still not that much money. And
No.
just to kill these little kids over it's
Mm-mm.
just so sick.
When Trezell was first interviewed by the police, they asked him about working, and basically he indicated they were just full time parents. And yeah, they were actually just living off of the benefits and the money they were making fostering these kids, or not fostering, but after adopting these kids. They
This
did
is one of
foster
the
them before they adopted them. Yeah.
This is one of the big arguments against allowing families that adopt a huge number of children or foster a huge number of children is that
Yep.
there are cases like this in which parents
Yep.
are literally living off their stipends
Hmm.
and that it attracts predatory people into foster care and foster adopt.
Yep.
And this is a great example of that.
It is. So is the Ariel Kalua case, and we will be
Yes, it
reporting
is.
deeply on that when we get to their trial. Their trial was supposed to be right now too, and it actually got moved to I think August. So
Again, it's been moved like 3 times. Oh,
that
that
one's in
makes me so
Hawaii,
mad. These people.
and it is, yep, it is such, it's a very similar case to this one
It
actually in a
is.
lot of ways. So we'll get to that one later. But that's what's up in the West case. So we're going to have a lot to say about that moving forward as well. So also that judge also did not allow cameras in the courtroom and has been just as combative as Judge Boyce has been about the press on this case.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's, as particularly locally in that case, there's a lot of public interest because people went out and have searched and searched and searched for these little boys.
Oh, yeah.
They're
Oh, yeah.
very invested in this,
Oh, people in
you
the
know.
community are super invested. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So but there has not been a lot of news. When you go
No,
out digging for articles,
there's not much, which
no,
is sad. It's
it is not.
awful because there's so many cases we've covered in the last couple of years in relation to foster and adopt situations that have been so horrific.
Mm-hmm.
People should be screaming from the rooftops about
Yeah.
these cases because these are the most vulnerable children in our
Yeah.
country, our kids in those systems.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
Yep. Yeah. So, with that, I am going to turn it over to you to talk to us about the Kohberger case.
The Kohberger case. So it may seem like the Vallow case is the only Idaho case right now, but it isn't. We've
Mm,
got the Brian Kohberger uh, quadruple murder trial out of Moscow, Idaho. Of course, this is a near and dear to our hearts as well because it's an Idaho
mhm.
case, and we have college students at not that university, but others. We also have a niece dating a boy from that college, that university. So,
Yeah.
this one is a big one for us. So, a few things have gone on. Now, there's a gag order in the Brian Kohberger case, and that did get upheld. It went clear to the Idaho Supreme Court. It's still being upheld. The press has sued. It's gotten nowhere, but we do have some things.
Yeah.
So I want to share a little bit. One of the things that happened a little while back is that the one roommate, Bethany Funk, she's the roommate who allegedly saw Kohberger leaving the house after the murders.
Hmm.
She's the one that froze and panicked and waited 5 or 6 hours, maybe longer, before telling anyone about what she saw.
Hmm.
Well, she has been fighting a subpoena to come back and testify in his preliminary hearing that's coming up at the end of June.
Hmm.
She is from Nevada. She's gone home to Nevada and she does not want to come back and testify. There's a lot of rumor swirling around why that is.
Hmm.
I'm not going to address that because we don't have any proof of any of it. But it is interesting. So she was actually being called by the defense,
Hmm.
and she hired her own attorney who filed a motion to quash the subpoena
Yeah.
that would have brought her here for the preliminary hearing and then again for the trial. I'm very puzzled by this whole thing. You would think she would want to, I don't know, help convict the guy that killed three of her roommates and a boy she knew. Like, I don't know. This girl is very puzzling to me, has been from the very beginning.
Hmm.
So, what they agreed to is that Kohberger's attorneys could go to Nevada and interview her in
Hmm.
lieu of her coming to the preliminary hearing.
Hmm.
Um, but one of the attorneys was quoted as saying Bethany Funk has information material to the charges against Mr. Kohberger.
Hmm.
Portions of information Ms. Funk has
Hmm.
is exculpatory to the defendant. They think what she saw is exculpatory, which would mean exonerating.
Hmm. No,
I'm very
one quick correction. It was
mm,
Dylan that saw Brian. It was Bethany who they're trying to
oh,
call in to testify.
right. You're right. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Bethany. I find this odd that her information
Mhm.
would be considered exculpatory. What does she know that's exculpatory?
Right.
It's interesting to me that this is coming from the defense.
Hmm.
Ms. Funk's information is unique to her experiences and cannot be provided by another witness. Um, she says she's already told the police everything she knows. She's been interviewed repeatedly,
Hmm.
all of this. So they apparently were, well, here's the other problem. Nevada will not make her go.
No.
She's in another state, and Nevada says we don't have to make her go. That's not in their law,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is strange to me. This is a
Yeah.
quadruple murder trial.
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. So, anyway,
And what the hell does Bethany Funk know?
Right. What does she know? And what does she know that's exculpatory?
Exculpatory.
I would think if she knew anything, it would be inculpatory. You know what I mean? Like, I
Mhm.
don't get it.
But we also had a tip from a police officer
Right.
in Idaho that the police absolutely believe he had an accomplice, and they absolutely believe that it was a roommate.
Yes, that is what we have heard. Again, we cannot prove that in any way, but
No.
we were certainly watching this
Yeah.
closely. Right. The prosecution could do a grand jury, but they're not. They're doing a preliminary hearing
Yeah.
instead of a grand jury. So I don't
Mhm.
know. So anyway, they went and interviewed her. She's not coming.
Mhm.
Interesting. Couple of other things. So Kohberger got another attorney. So he's now tying up between the Vallow case and the Kohberger case. We're tying up a lot of death penalty certified public defenders because there are not that many in Idaho.
No.
So a new attorney has been added to his case. Her name is Elisa G. Massoth. She's now co-counsel in this case.
Mhm.
She actually went to the University of Washington. No, she went to U of I. She went to the University of Idaho. That's right.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Her website says that she's qualified to defend clients facing death penalty, and under her About section, she claims to be one of the top criminal defense lawyers in Idaho, which I find hilarious. According to who? That seems
Yeah.
a little self-imposed awards, I guess. She has been on the Idaho Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. She was a president of that. Like she's done some stuff, definitely. I don't want to say she hasn't, but I think that sounds like an attorney for you to say that about themselves on their website. She overturned a case of a man accused of attempted murder and kidnapping. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
She, on appeal, overturned. He was convicted of 4 consecutive life sentences plus 50 years.
Yeah.
And on appeal, she got his case thrown out based on witness mistaken identity of her client. Interesting. Does that have anything to do with Bethany Funk? I don't know.
Right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
she's been appointed to work alongside the other, I forget her name, the other attorney. So it's very interesting that his attorneys are women.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
With his the rumors of his attitude towards women, definitely
know.
kind of interesting. And yes, some of you guys are
Right.
asking
Oh,
how
Taylor.
far
Taylor is the other
Taylor,
attorney.
that's right. How far from Rexburg is Moscow? It's about 9 hours. It's
Yeah.
a long ways away. About
Mhm. It's a long ways
560
from us.
miles. Yeah, we're
Idaho is a big state,
Mhm.
geographically.
Yeah. Not a lot of people, but plenty of land. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's in the Panhandle. We're in southeastern Idaho, so it's a ways from us. The
Mhm.
other thing, though, this is, I think, some of the most interesting stuff that's going on. So, his attorneys, are demanding a bunch of discovery be turned over to them before the preliminary hearing, which, of course, is very standard stuff. And it sounds like the same kinds of fights that have gone on with the Daybell and Vallow cases. They're reiterating that they've been asking. They asked February 3rd and March 24th, and now they've asked again. And who knows what's actually true, that like they're getting things as they can get them, whatever.
Sure.
But one of the things they have asked for is all body cam related to him.
Yeah.
And what I have to show you is some body cam from a traffic stop from him in Pullman. And it's interesting. It doesn't have anything to do with the murders. This happened a month before the murders happened. But this is the most I've ever seen of him actually like speaking and communicating with another person.
Mhm.
He's a dick. The way he speaks to this, by the way, female police officer is very interesting. So I edited this down. It was like a 10-minute video. I've got it down to about 5. But watch this and just listen to him, the way that he speaks, the way that he communicates with her. It's very interesting. We're going to watch it and then we'll talk about it some more. So here is the traffic stop.
Video recorded. I think you know why I stopped you. You ran the red light.
What actually happened was I was stuck in the middle of the intersection.
Yeah,
so
I was behind you the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So technically you're not supposed to enter the intersection at all for that reason, because if the light turns red, then you're stuck in the intersection, and then you run the red light. So that's the reason I stopped you. Do you have your license on you?
Yep.
Do you have the registration and insurance?
Yes. Let me just get this for you out.
You what?
I'm just gonna get this out for you.
Okay.
So would you explain that to me a little bit further? So in Pennsylvania, when you're stuck like in the intersection, you have to make the left. So what would the appropriate thing for me to have done been? Just
You're
back up in
not
that
supposed to
situation?
block an intersection like that in Washington, so just by you blocking the intersection, that's technically a ticketable violation, and then then you're running a red light, so it's another ticketable offense. So you're not supposed to proceed into the intersection until you can go, because a lot of people do what you just did, right? Is like you're sitting in the intersection waiting, and then turns, and then you're blocking, so.
Yeah, there was a little bit of confusion with speeding because someone had stopped. I wasn't sure what they were doing, and then they put on their light to turn. So I thought that maybe they were letting me go through.
Oh.
Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, like right before I made the turn, there was someone who like made a right. They didn't have their signal on, so I wasn't sure if they were just waiting.
Yeah, so I would just advise just don't enter the intersection until you can go, so you don't get stuck. Let's see.
But in that situation, the best thing to do then would be back up and not.
I don't know if there's a best
I
thing to do in
couldn't-
that situation, because you're either going to back up into somebody
Yeah.
or you're going to run a red light. So, or you're going to be sitting in an intersection.
Yeah.
There's not really a great option there.
Yeah, I was just slightly into the crosswalk, so. Yeah, where I'm from Pennsylvania, we actually don't have like crosswalks.
Oh,
So even if
interesting.
you're kind of slightly, there's a little bit more leeway as well. Like there are a few lines. Like there's one white line and there's another one in front. Like there's like a certain
Yeah.
margin from which you can actually kind of place your vehicle. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know laws vary state to state, but there is a law in Washington for blocking an intersection like that, proceeding through when you don't, when you're just stalling. I forget the actual verbiage, I can find it for you, but it's like stalling, blocking an intersection.
Yeah. I'm just curious about the law. I don't mean to.
Oh no, yeah, I can
not
find
like
it for you.
disagree with
Yeah.
anything. But,
1 second. That looks good on a Hyundai. I don't see Pennsylvania registration like at all. Okay, let's see. Expires November 22nd, or 2022. Okay. And
yeah, one of those is actually.
yeah, okay, that looks good. I'll hand that back to you. I'm just gonna go check your info. I'll try to find that RCW, the law for you, and I'll be right back.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so I found it. So I don't know what in Pennsylvania where you go to find laws, but in Washington it's called the Revised Code of Washington. So I'll try to turn my brightness up, but it's just called an RCW. So it's RCW 46.61.202. So it's no driver shall enter an intersection unless there is significant space on the other side of the intersection. To accommodate the vehicle he is operating without obstructing the passage of other vehicles, despite any traffic control signal indications to proceed. So you had a green light, so you're thinking you can go, but you're blocking the intersection.
Yeah.
So that's, if you're ever curious in any laws in Washington, just Revised Code of Washington. So I'm not writing a ticket or anything like that today. I understand you're from Pennsylvania, but in the future, don't proceed through the intersection. You can't get stopped for that alone, unless you can clearly just clear it right away.
Okay.
So
So then basically, I understand.
you're just supposed to wait behind the white line. Drivers do it all the time,
It
but
never even occurred to me that that was actually something wrong. But
yeah.
well, except for the fact that I was blocking the crosswalk, which is what
Yeah.
I went through.
And states vary a lot from laws. Like Pennsylvania might not even have that law, but in Washington we do.
I'm actually just from a very rural area, so we just don't have crosswalks.
Oh,
Unless I visit an area where there are
Gotcha.
crosswalks, and then it's not very frequent.
yeah.
Yeah, I do apologize if I was asking you too many questions about the law. I wasn't trying to
No, not at all. Like I
disagree.
understand you're not from here, so if you don't, a lot of people don't know a bunch of laws. Like I only know it because this is what I do. But yeah.
You know what Washington isn't?
Pennsylvania. I mean, that went on. That was 5 minutes. The actual stop itself was 9.5 minutes long. Right? Who talks to the police that long? You're like, fine, give me my ticket, I'll get out. He gets out of the freaking ticket. He says they don't have crosswalks in Pennsylvania. Are you kidding me?
Just for fun, I
Totally
googled
dumb.
it, and as you, I'm sure, can figure out, they certainly do. Yeah.
Right. It was really strange, and the way he just questioned her, and then oh, I'm sorry if I'm questioning you too much, which he knows he is.
Well, right.
He knows he's being a dick.
That was Brian's explaining right there.
It really was. I thought it helped me get a better picture of him because we haven't heard him speak in court. Like we haven't seen hardly anything of him as a person. And so I found this really interesting. And then all the excuses. And I don't know. I just found it strange, like to go back and forth with an officer that much to the point that she goes to her car, she prints the law in her cruiser and brings it back to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is very condescending. His only chance to talk to a female, that may be right. Incel, definitely incel, because he was not trying to be rude, and yet he was quite rude. Right. Would he have acted the same with a male officer? I doubt it.
Well, he hasn't. We've seen some of his the times that he was pulled over by male officers, and he didn't act like that at all.
No. Well, and yeah, he's a terrible driver. We know he has that neurological issue that is called visual snow, and so he sees like static sort of in his vision. And he was pulled over many times.
Oh my gosh.
Some of them, those times in Moscow, and then some of them in Pullman. But he got pulled over
in Idaho. Yeah.
Pullman. So he got pulled over twice going from Idaho to Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah.
He got pulled over in that like 3 or 4 month span more than I've ever been pulled over in my entire life.
Oh yeah.
Like he gets pulled over all the time. You would think, being, a quadruple murderer, that he might want to, I don't know, have less contact with the cops.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yes, it is.
Right? Elliot said, I kind of had an aha moment when I finally got to hear his voice. I kind of felt weird about even giving it attention until I realized everyone in the sleuth community felt the same. Right? Really weird. And sorry for the weird formatting. I thought I formatted that video for YouTube, but it sure looks like it's formatted for TikTok, doesn't it? I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
But, Elliot says he was pulled over back to back in my state of Indiana within just a few minutes of each other and for the same infraction.
Yeah. Wasn't it following too close?
That's right. Following too close. He's a terrible driver. Can you imagine what his insurance must be?
I was thinking
he didn't get a ticket that time, but
he was pretty good, I think, of talking his way out of tickets. But
yeah, I think so. But that was really telling. I feel like I learned some things about him just witnessing that interaction that we did not know before.
Yeah. Agreed.
So anyway, that's what I have on Kohberger right now. Yeah. We will keep watching, of course, and his preliminary is coming up in June, although no cameras in the courtroom.
Yeah.
So we'll have to report on that after the fact. Unfortunately, we won't be able to go up there. It's a long ways away, but
He doesn't have a car anymore. That's
well,
true.
he doesn't. That is true. Oh yeah, that's right. He said, "Sorry, we're so punchy" or something like that on the way to get Thai food.
Yeah,
Right,
Dad said
Elliot.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
his
Dad said
dad. But
that.
I'm blown away by how many times he was pulled over and the time that he started school at Pullman to the
Mhm.
time he went home for
Mhm.
Christmas before he was arrested. It's a
But
lot.
just in that
It's
same vein
weird.
of that kind of attitude and behavior, don't forget that he had been fired from his position as a student
TA.
TA because
Yeah.
of bullshit behavior.
Hmm.
We read through that and before all of the letter that he received releasing him that
Yeah.
detailed all of the behavior issues, all of the conversations that they had had with him about his behavior, all of the interactions and altercations he'd had. He'd only been there a semester.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's people that had him in their, had classes with him and or from him that said he was an asshole. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So very just interesting. I wanted to be able to hear his voice and look
Mhm.
at his face and
Yep.
assess him a little bit. And I'm really glad we got that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Very
Well,
interesting.
back to you, Katie.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Letitia. Stop.
Stout.
Stauch. God damn it. Every time. Stauch. Letitia Stauch. Of course, this is that heinous human who
Oh,
murdered her poor little stepson, Gannon. Gannon, who was, I pulled up pictures of all of my victims tonight and I forgot to show you.
oh,
Uh, so just because we should, these are the West boys. This is Oren and
yeah.
Orson that I discussed earlier.
Sweet little babies.
Yes.
God.
Here's Gannon.
Also,
Gannon was
a sweet kid.
such a sweet kid. He was 11 years old. He was in the care of his stepmother while his dad was working, and she murdered him. And then went through all of these insane steps while he was missing. She had done a bunch of things, put his body in a tote and hid it in the basement for a while, and then in a storage unit. And then throughout the course of time, rented a whole bunch of different rental cars as she headed across the country from Colorado clear to Florida with his body in a suitcase and then threw that suitcase under a bridge. And she was miraculously caught. Really
Right? It
miraculously.
really is rather amazing that she was.
Mhm. And she was such an unbelievable jerk at her trial.
She was a see you next Tuesday at her
Oh
trial.
my God. She
She was right up there
kept.
with Daryl Brooks.
Mhm. Almost. She
Oof.
kept refusing or trying to refuse to even show up on court days. And the judge finally signed an order saying, "We'll bring you here gagged, bound, kicking, screaming. It doesn't matter. Your ass is going to be in court."
Hmm.
And so there for a while, she was in court, but wasn't quite sitting with her attorneys, was sitting away from them a little ways clear up against the wall. Then she was sitting back near her attorneys. There arose a problem when she was in trouble for making gestures towards the jury or looking like
Like
maybe she was
this.
mouthing things to them. No, that comes too.
Oh,
Then there was that. Then she was flipping off the jury and the witnesses, including her own daughter.
yeah. She's
She's,
one of the most hateful people I've ever seen.
oh my gosh. There was a clip of her and one of her attorneys watching something on his computer, just laughing their heads off. And you can see Al, Gannon's dad, behind them, in the courtroom, in the spectators part, watching that happening, looking so pissed and puzzled. I mean, yeah, laying her head on the table, yawning, sleeping.
Well, and
It's
like
just
pulling all her
unreal.
hair over her face.
Yeah, yep. She was just determined to be an asshole.
Yeah.
Gannon's dad says that she was a completely different person when he married her. His statement, his victim's impact statement was so sweet. And I didn't bring it tonight because it's quite long. The victim impact statements were absolutely heartbreaking. I felt like they did a beautiful job, their family did, in representing Gannon. But what I did bring is a video of the judge speaking after the verdict. So the jury found her guilty on all 4 counts. So I have a little bit of the judge speaking. He actually spoke for nearly 20 minutes. We're not going to watch all of that, but I have about 2 minutes of him talking in the beginning. He was wonderful. Wow, was he wonderful.
Well,
And then,
probably really wanted to have his opportunity to say
mhm,
exactly what he thought of her. I'm very curious to hear Boyce speak
mhm,
to Lori Vallow for the same reason.
yes. And then the sentencing. So in this case, she was sentenced immediately, which,
Yeah.
as we know, is not going to be the way it happens for Lori. But that's how it happened here. So let's take a watch here.
Not fathom the pain Mr. Stauch and Ms. Bullard have experienced as a result of the defendant's actions. A sentence in a criminal case such as this will not change the fact that their son's life was taken from them, and no sentence I impose and nothing I say will ever change that fact. Ms. Stauch, you betrayed the person you loved enough to marry. You told your husband lies and took away someone he loved. You took away every day that Mr. Stauch or Ms. Bullard could have had with their son. When you take a life, regardless of how you do that, you forever alter the future. Neither Mr. Stauch nor Ms. Bullard will ever see their son graduate from high school, go through the joy and the pain of that first love, or get married. They will never know what kind of impact their son may have had on the world if only he had lived to become an adult. And had Gannon's body not been found, they never would have known what happened to Gannon. They would always have had a lingering doubt about what happened to Gannon. And I cannot imagine the pain and sense of loss associated with that. Statistically, there is a high correlation between violent acts, including murders, and family members. I have had a number of cases which have demonstrated one person's capacity for cruelty toward another human being. I can, however, say without hesitation that the facts in this case are the most horrific I have ever seen. Your conduct in this case deserves the maximum punishment that I can impose under Colorado law. As such, with respect to the charge of first-degree murder after deliberation, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. With respect to the charge of murder in the first degree of a child under 12 by a person in a position of trust, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. Those two sentences will merge. If you have questions about that, you can ask your attorneys. With respect to the charge of tampering with a deceased human body, I'm also going to sentence you to 12 years, followed by a 3-year period of parole. That sentence is to be consecutive to the life sentences that I've already imposed. With respect to tampering with physical evidence, I'm going to impose an 18-month sentence. That sentence is also consecutive to the sentences for the murder charges that I have imposed. I also understand, with the consent of the prosecution, and I'm assuming no objection from the defense, that I will dismiss all the charges in 20 CR 3170, close that out subject to restitution, give the people 49 days for restitution, 14 days for response, and if there's an issue, we will set it within the 90 days, from. I think that resolves all outstanding matters. Is there anything else that the prosecution wishes for me to address?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Defense?
Yes.
Court will be in recess.
There you have it.
I think
So-
my heart needs those words from Judge Boyce, something similar.
Yeah.
But I agree with all of you about that judge's voice. He has a great voice for,
Mhm.
he should have a podcast, man.
Right?
This
He's
is an
got a
awesome voice.
beautiful voice.
He
Yeah.
does.
So, yep. Tisha is done. So that is that. So thank God there was justice for Gannon. How could the jury not find her guilty after all of that nonsense
Right?
and all of the shit she did? I mean, they had a very, very strong case against her.
Right.
But Godfrey.
There
But
was-
let's move on. We still have quite a bit of ground we wanted to cover.
we do.
We're going to run ourselves right out of time. So,
I
Christy,
want to read something really quick
yeah.
that I read today, and this is actually back to Vallow, but it's something that, because we've all talked a bit about, how, did they really prove murder? And I want to read this little excerpt from Idaho law about the definition of this murder. Sorry, I'm trying to think and find stuff on my phone. I forgot I was going to show this on the screen, but I didn't get a chance to edit it. But here's what Idaho law says, because we were talking about this. Yes, we've talked about it several times. Did Lori really, meet the qualifications for first degree murder?
Yeah.
This is the language. This is the legal definition in Idaho from the indictment. Concerned in the commission of a first degree murder and did aid and abet in its commission, or not being present, advised and encouraged its commission, or by command compelled another to commit the crime, and did so with malice aforethought, and did so willingly, deliberately, and with premeditation, which resulted in the death of a human being.
Boom. Guilty on all counts.
Boom. Yes, absolutely. She did all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were talking yesterday, maybe we won't see murder, maybe it'll only be conspiracy. But by this definition in the indictment, Lori most definitely,
Yeah.
they did prove murder charges for her. I just wanted to say that
Yeah.
because I read it today. I'd read it before and I wanted to go back and review it because, I don't know, as I'm sure you all are, I'm twisting in my guts about this thing. And
Oh, me too. I think that's why I'm like, we might not get all counts. Let's all just calm down. We might not get all counts.
But
I don't want to get my hopes up too much, but yeah.
But those text messages, just the things that she said, I don't even care if they say you can't hear what anybody else said.
Mhm.
What she said, she did all of those things.
Yeah. Yep.
For her own children.
And the hair. Since there was no defense to fight the hair, which I thought they would fight it to tooth and nail and basically make
I
it
really think
irrelevant.
they're completely planning on a case in
They
appeal.
didn't. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, I wanted to share that. But yes, do you want me to share another of my cases?
I like that. Yes. Yeah. What would you like to do?
Let's talk about this Utah mom.
Yeah.
You may or may not know if you're new with us, but we do cover actually a lot of Mormon adjacent cases, not just the Daybell Vallow, but many others, because these cases don't get very much attention. And so we focus on them. So let's talk about Corey Richens. You may have heard about Corey Richens. She has just been arrested for the poisoning death of her husband. He died a year ago. Sorry, that blew up not well. But this is Corey with her husband. And this is the grief book, Are You With Me?, that she wrote with her children to help them recover from the death of their father, which she caused. So she's now in custody, thank God, charged with her husband's murder.
Yeah.
He died from a lethal dose of illicit fentanyl.
Yeah.
So an acquaintance of hers has come forward who acquired $900 worth of illicit fentanyl for her twice. She attempted to poison him more than once. And actually told a friend of his that he thought that his wife was trying to poison him.
Yeah.
The other thing that she did, Eric owned a business with a partner, and they had this joint life insurance policy that would pay out to either of them if one of them died because they own a business together.
Mm-hmm.
She changed that life insurance policy to make herself the sole beneficiary of that life insurance policy. And he knew that she had done that.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that she did leading up to this, I'm like, dude, why did you stay with this person?
Right. Charles, anyone? I mean, gosh.
He had about 5 times the lethal dose in his system of illicit fentanyl.
Yep.
So they searched her house recently, took phones, computers. They actually found communication between her and her dealer. And then they've spoken with the dealer about the drugs. And they did say that, yes, they obtained those pills for her on 2 different occasions. They also obtained hydrocodone for her another time. She had reached out to this acquaintance and said she wanted some of the Michael Jackson stuff because Michael Jackson died of a fentanyl overdose. And that, so last year on February 11th, she paid $900 for 15 to 30 fentanyl pills. And about 2 weeks later on February 26th, she did it again.
Wow.
So she got the hydrocodone once and the fentanyl twice. So Eric died on March 4th of 2022. EMS went to the house because it was an unresponsive man. They tried to revive him. And he died. And this was 6 days after she got that second round of pills.
Yeah.
So what she said was that they were celebrating a closing on a house for her business. Now, this is interesting. So they were kind of half-ass Mormons. I would call them Jack Mormons because she brought him a cocktail in bed. It was a Moscow Mule. And she had put that fentanyl in that cocktail, and obviously mixing fentanyl, a high dose of fentanyl and alcohol is going to be fatal.
Yeah.
After she brought him that, she then went and slept with one of her sons because he was having a night terror, apparently. So she wasn't even in the room with him. When she woke up about 3 hours later, he was cold to the touch. Sound familiar, anyone?
Yeah.
So then she called 911.
Yep.
So she's like been on TV. The books had been for sale on Amazon. All this stuff about helping her 3 sons through, or her 3 children. It's sons, 3 sons, through dealing with their grief over their dad. And apparently, nighttime was the very worst.
And also helping others to deal with their grief because she's learned so much in this last year that she wanted to share that with other people. Yeah.
Right. So 2 months before he died is when she tried to change the life insurance policy. Yeah. She logged into his life insurance policy. Now, does this sound familiar? That was, with his business partner, and changed the beneficiary from each other to her as the only beneficiary. Yeah. But the company reached out to them because this seemed like an odd change considering that this was a business-related life insurance policy. And so he knew she had done it.
Yeah.
He had told family if something were to happen to him that she was to blame. And I don't know, maybe he just stayed to protect his kids. He was probably really afraid for them. But prior to all this happening, they had been in Greece on a vacation. This was a few years ago. And she brought him a drink. He became very ill and had told family members that his wife had tried to kill him, that he believed his wife had tried to kill him. This was literally years before.
Wow.
I don't know. And in 2022, there was an incident on Valentine's Day where he got sick after eating a sandwich that she had made for him. Apparently, after one bite, he broke out in hives and couldn't breathe.
Wow.
And they had an EpiPen for their son that he used, and he took some Benadryl, and he lived. So I don't know what she gave
What the
him.
hell?
I'm not sure what maybe his allergies were, that she'd exposed him to something that he was allergic to. But I mean, she tried at least twice before she was,
Here, her first husband?
successful. Yeah. She is. This is her first husband.
Really sad.
So
Phyllis
apparently,
wanted to know if her book was by chance published by Spring Creek Publishing.
right? Had this happened a few years ago, probably.
Mhm.
No, apparently Amazon has pulled it down. I wish they would do the same to Chad Daybell's books, but they haven't.
Hell, yeah.
So apparently, after the life insurance thing happened, he was looking into a divorce and figuring out what to do to protect his kids.
Mhm.
So apparently, what they were supposedly celebrating was a $2 million real estate investment for her business. And that he had told other people that he was going to say that he wouldn't sign the papers. And the day after he died, she signed the papers on her own.
Oh my God.
So we know what really happened there is he
Mhm.
told her no.
Yep.
So she is in the Summit County Jail and is being held without bail. And there's another hearing coming up on May 19th.
Okay.
So, holy shit. Like, this is in Park City, Utah. I mean, does no one get divorced anymore? They just murder their spouse so they can have their life insurance and whatever.
Yes.
Like, it's a terrifying story. But it's got so many
Mhm.
similarities to the Daybell Vallow situation.
It
It's
does.
just crazy.
It's wild.
Yeah. So we will be following that one closely. We're also following the one James Craig out of Colorado, the dentist, also
Mhm.
Mormon, who poisoned his wife.
Yes.
And we covered that not shortly before the trial began. So we'll be updating that one here coming up soon as well. But we definitely follow these Mormon cases because we understand the culture, and there's a lot, as you know, because we talk about it all the time with David Vallow. We like to cover these cases because they don't get much attention.
Mhm.
I got to tell you guys, the Mormons are not okay, and I'll tell you why in my next segment, but I'm going to kick it back to you first.
Okay. Well, I'm going to talk. We have a little update in Irene Gakwa.
Oh, yes.
So this is the lovely Irene, as well as Nathaniel Heitman, her ex-boyfriend, or
Rotted
had
bag of
been
mayonnaise.
boyfriend. Yes, there you go. Rotted bag of mayonnaise left out in the sun too long. That's a good
Yeah.
one. I like that. So Irene vanished a couple of years ago, about this time. Well, it was in February of 2021. And Irene had moved to Gillette, Wyoming to live with Nathan. She actually came here from Kenya to study nursing in Idaho at Boise
Yeah.
State. And she did that. And then she moved to Gillette to live with Nathan, her boyfriend, and had been there for a time and then just vanished. And there's been a lot of searches for her. There is a coalition of women, a group of women in Gillette that have been absolutely magnificent in advocating for Irene, searching for
Yeah.
Irene, harassing and putting a lot of pressure on Nathan, which I am here for.
Yes,
They've
every
been
second.
amazing. Not a one of them has ever met Irene. They just knew that
No.
there was this woman missing from their town. So every time I talk about Irene, I like to give them some huge props and say
Yeah,
that every community needs a group of them. They're still
definitely.
holding searches. They're still holding searches. They're amazing. Where's Irene? There's some real talk. There was a 55-gallon barrel, or 50, yeah, 55-gallon barrel drum associated with Nathan that made people think that perhaps he did something with her body that way. But what he did do within a few weeks of her disappearing was he drained her bank accounts. He closed her email account, like deleted it, and did some other online things to her finances. And that's all he's been charged with. He still has not been charged with her disappearance. He claims that she just got pissed off and left, that she told him she was going to Texas, and he just never saw her again. So,
And
of
why
course.
Texas? She had family in Boise,
Mhm.
family in Kenya. Why the hell would she go to Texas? Such
Why
a
Texas?
bad
But
liar.
also, what Nathaniel or Nathan, wouldn't she need her money?
Probably
Wouldn't
still be using her email account too.
I mean, yeah. But gosh, no, apparently not. So he has been charged, though, and we've been kind of waiting all this time for at least those charges to do something. And when he just was about to go to court on this, he suddenly changed his plea and pled guilty. So that's at least something.
Hmm.
Her family is still really holding hope that she gets found, but at least Nathan Heitman is finally going to do some time for what he did do, while they hopefully figure out how to charge him and figure out what happened to Irene. But
Yeah.
that was at least some progress, so I wanted to share that. So, Christy, I'm going to kick it back over to you for our last story tonight.
Yeah, and this is a sad one, and I will tell you that we don't normally cover suicides, but this is a rather well-known social media figure. This is Heather Armstrong. Heather Armstrong was kind of one of the early mommy bloggers.
Mm-hmm.
She was known as Deuce, Dooce,
Mm-hmm.
because I guess it was a joke because she spelled it that way instead of dude one time or something, and it was a big joke. So she
Mm-hmm.
went under that name. She's 47 years old, lives in Salt Lake City. She is a lapsed Mormon. And she, made a lot of money on her blog about parenthood and marriage. And she's had a fairly tumultuous life, but a lot of the things that she talked about in her blog were about her struggle with depression and how much she struggled over the years with her depression and how that affected her ability to parent and her relationships. And, news media has called her the queen of the mommy bloggers. And so probably, I think many people, I didn't know her, but I don't really follow mommy bloggers. She was on Oprah, like very well known. She had about 8.5 million readers a month, according to a 2019 article, which is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And her husband, John Armstrong, and she has 2 kids,
Mm-hmm.
all lived in Salt Lake City, and she was found dead in her home, and it has been deemed a suicide, which it's very sad. I think it's very sad. And I don't know if you know this, but statistically, there are more prescriptions written for antidepressants in the state of Utah than per capita anywhere else in the U.S. It's a huge epidemic, depression is, in Mormon women, because Mormon women are driven to be the perfect wife and mother. And she wasn't super active as a Mormon anymore, but believe me, that was built deeply within her, and she lost her fight to depression. And I think it's very sad, and it's something that we need to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
That constant drive to be perfect and to be the perfect wife and mom, the pressure of that is so hard.
Mm-hmm.
And right, of course, she's got her whole life online. And so there's, it's bad enough just in your own life, but then you add that to now you're this public figure with this huge public presence. That's
Yeah.
really difficult.
Yeah.
It's a really, really big deal. And it is a big problem in the state of Utah. And it is a big problem in Mormon women. It's a huge amount of pressure. So I just wanted to share that and wish all our love to her family.
Yeah.
And, it is true in men as well, but it is not as big of an epidemic as it is in women.
No.
Because women in the LDS religion are in a real box that is expected to be perfect and clean at all times.
Yep.
And that's tough. And I think it's really sad. Heather Armstrong was, doing good work and trying really hard.
Yep.
And was plenty good enough to not have had that much pressure on her, but it was there.
Certainly.
And it won, which I think is sad.
Really sad, and so sad for her kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And her husband, it's terrible.
Yep. All of it. Yep. Well, her boyfriend. She had a boyfriend.
Oh, boyfriend. That's right.
Was her boyfriend at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very sad. A couple of follow-ups on Irene Gakwa. She's actually only been missing for a year, which is crazy to me. I feel like we've been covering this case forever.
It's just because there's never any, they never get anywhere with it. So we're always looking to see if they've gotten anywhere.
Right. I said 2 years because I thought it was, and then I went back and looked because I'm like, that might be wrong. Yeah, that's wrong. It feels like it's been forever. Also, somebody wanted to know where Nathan is. He's in Gen Pop in the jail there in Gillette. He's going to be sentenced on June 14th. So he's not going anywhere.
Good.
Also, Stacy Coaster is the lady in Gillette that has really led the charge against Nathan and towards trying to find her. And Nathan at one point actually filed for a restraining order against Stacy. And when they went in front of the judge, they were like, yeah, bye-bye. Nope. And denied that because basically she's like, I'm trying to find your fiance has disappeared for almost a year now.
Right.
And you haven't looked for her at all. So what are you doing?
Right. Yeah.
You know, and the judge basically was like, yeah, we're not doing this. Anyway, so all hail badass Stacy. She's amazing. Yeah.
Also, I can't imagine the Gillette jail is much of a jail. I bet it's quite small. This is not a big place.
No.
And I would imagine old Nathan's not having a real good time in that jail.
I'll bet the Gillette jail is rough.
Yeah,
I'll bet that is a rough place.
Yeah. This is Wyoming. This is the literal wild, wild west.
Well, Nathan worked from home. And I had spoken to some of the girls in Gillette a couple of times. And they told me they basically had surveillance on his house. They knew his comings and goings. They knew his schedule. They knew when he left, when he came home, where he ordered his food from. And they pretty much had him all figured out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now he's probably living on Hot Pockets just like Chad.
Probably, which is exactly what he deserves. But God, I hope we could just find Irene so there's some closure for her family.
Yep. Well, we're not going to stop talking about Irene's case. Her poor family is in Kenya. Well, she has some brothers in Boise, but most of her parents are in Kenya. Most of her family's in Kenya, and they are just desperately hoping for some answers here. So
I can't imagine what that must feel like to have a missing family member in another country like that. That would be just terrifying.
Yeah. The Gillette jail, it's actually the Campbell County jail, but in Gillette. Yeah. Yep. Well, Chad doesn't even deserve cold pockets. It's true. He doesn't need a microwave.
Whenever we say Hot Pockets, I don't know if any of you are Jim Gaffigan fans, but he's a comedian and he has the funniest bit on Hot Pockets, but he says it, Hot Pockets, and he says it that way, like from the commercial, and he says it that way over and over and over again in that bit, and so I can never not hear it that way. Every time we talk about Chad eating Hot Pockets in Fremont County, just think it's really funny.
I know, me too. Yep, I as well hear that every time. Yep. Yeah, they raised money to yep, to help push for yeah, advocacy and also for signs. At one point they had signs up and down Nathan Heitman's street on various neighbors' yards demanding to know where is Irene.
I love
They've
it.
done some very good and salty work. We
They
appreciate
have.
it.
And
We're here for it.
it's very similar to the things that were happening here when before Tylee and JJ's bodies were found. You know, there were the shirts on like telephone poles.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
are the children and pictures of the kids.
Mhm.
I love it when communities get involved in things like that.
Mhm.
We have to get involved. We can't just sit back and let the legal system do it all because they can't.
Can't and
They
they
can't.
don't. In Irene's case, you have to imagine Gillette, Wyoming is whiter than white.
Oh, yes.
And
Very.
darling little black Irene living in this whitey town, no offense to Gillette, but it's just true, hadn't lived there very long, hadn't worked there for very long. Nobody really knew her. It would have been, and her most of her family is in Kenya. It was almost too easy, you know, to just disappear her. And were it not for the ladies in this town screaming to the rooftops about her, she would have just.
She would have. I know.
He would have been successful. She would have just slipped by the wayside. And I don't mean that it's because of race. I just mean that she was not known. Nobody knew her. Nobody really cared about her because they didn't know her. And she had a
And she
few
didn't have-
coworkers that noticed her absence, of course, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's awesome when people in the community get involved like that because if not, law
Mhm.
enforcement has a little bit of a tendency to move on when they can't find anything.
Yep. That's correct. He thought nobody cared.
Yeah.
Yep. And the women in their town proved that whenever there's a missing woman in this town, then by God, we're going to care.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know. I do love that.
Taylor said, I don't want to hear the words Chad, meat, or storm in the same sentence in any variation.
Right? I will never recover from that little naming we discovered. Oh my God.
Good Lord.
I could have lived 1,000 lifetimes and not known that.
But wait, we get to hear it all again in a year. In
I hope
Chad's
not.
trial.
Come on. Just plead guilty, you jackass.
Plead already, Chad.
Right?
Come on, man. I would say do it for your kids so they don't have to relive this again, but he's already proven he doesn't give a flying fuck about them, so
He really doesn't.
that won't be happening.
Yeah.
The jury's definitely going to need therapy. Can you imagine?
No.
I
And to
have
be
so
inundated
much
with it all
compassion
at
for
once
them.
like this, rather than it's been doled out to us over 3 years, you know. And some of it was new in court, but not all of it. But man, to just get slammed with all of this at once in that trial, holy shit.
So painful. I have so much compassion for the jury. It just and their families.
Yeah.
Because can you imagine what they have been like? Basset Hound, Fairy Magic. What it's been like for their families that they're coming home with from this horror every day and they can't talk about it. And like, how much does this change a person? Maybe forever, you know? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so straight-laced on the surface, but naming their sex organs, right?
Oof.
Well, I mean, I have to admit, we named Lori's a long time ago.
Well, okay, we did name Lori's vagina, which might have seemed weird, except that it was a very key part of this entire case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think if Chad had heard our name for it, he would have totally agreed. But
God, it would have ended up in the James and Elena story.
James
and
Elena
the golden
and the case
vagina.
of the golden vagina.
Yeah. I can totally see it. He'll probably write it from the get-go.
Yes.
Ugh.
Fran said, I heard a male podcaster say Chad's storm only sprinkled. Biffany, you missed this? Yes, it actually said in open court a few days ago that Chad and Lori had named his penis Storm or the Storm.
Gross.
Yes.
And we've been calling Lori the golden vagina pretty much the entire time we've been covering this case because we kind of felt like that's what got her through all of the shit she has done throughout her life. that she must have a golden vagina because she got all of these men to support her and do whatever she wanted for them.
And not
including
just her
brother.
husband,
Gross.
all men, her brother,
Mhm.
the bishop that helped her pull all that bullshit on Charles, other men that she came in, the cop that helped her in Arizona that helped her get out of having to have a psych eval when
Yeah.
she and Charles were potentially going to get divorced. Yeah.
Yeah. But that
Face
old
to face, storm to storm. That was cheek to cheek and loin to loin, and you know it.
oh,
That
however,
was said too.
gross,
Yes.
but true. Yes. But we have been
Lord.
saying that like the golden vagina has gotten pretty tarnished these days.
Mhm.
It's not working anymore.
No. For sure, no. We'll see if she can shine it up and flash it in prison and get some of the things she wants. I suspect
she
she
will.
will.
Absolutely, she will. Yeah.
If Lori and Chad don't both start their own little mini cults in prison, I will be very surprised.
Oh, they will. You know they will.
Mhm.
Ugh.
Oh, we don't know on Melanie P. We all want her to be charged, but why hasn't she been?
I don't know. They may be saving her for Chad's trial too. That's possible.
I just
I don't
don't
know.
know.
Yeah. Oh, Amy, it was brass, not gold. Now it's all green and crusty. Oh, gross.
Somebody once
That
before.
link, it was gold filled. Yes.
Oh yeah, someone once before said it was fool's gold.
I think that.
I'm sure it was
probably-
Paula that said that. Yes.
Yeah. That's good.
Too funny. All righty. Well, you guys, we probably better go. We've got a
Yeah.
very big day tomorrow. So
Don't we?
keep
though?
an eye on Twitter and Facebook. We will be giving you all the deets, and it's going to be interesting to see what it's like to go into Madison tomorrow. It's going to be crowded.
It's gonna be so tight in there. Ugh.
It's going to suck. I kind of hope they do open the second room. Frankly, if they open the second room, I will be the first guy in there
Me too.
because
Yeah.
it'll be quieter, hopefully, in there and less challenging. We'll see. We'll find out.
Yeah, because we're gonna have to do a lot of shushing tomorrow. I'm afraid
Mm-hmm.
people consider it a little too much of a party for being a murder trial,
Well, but Darla was there earlier this week and said
right?
that they had now banned treats and eating and candy and shit from the
People are
courtroom.
passing out candy
Finally.
and treats and stuff. I'm
Mhm.
like, my God, this is not a movie, okay?
Mhm.
This is real life. Actual people have been murdered. It's just gross. I don't.
Lives
get
have been
that at
ruined.
all. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we'll let you all know,
Yes,
and we'll
we
be back
will.
tomorrow night, same place, same time.
Hmm.
All righty, guys. Well, thanks for being here. This has been yet another production of the True Crime Squad.
Bye, everybody.